Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. To start, would you mind just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit more about yourself and about your interest in mediation?
My name is Odofle, Odofle, but I'm called Regina, and there's a story behind that. It's a long one, I don't think we have time for. But um, I was born in Ghana, West Africa, and I I lived in Ghana until I was 25 years of age and then left for Canada. I currently reside in Toronto in the province of Ontario. I'm married. I have two grown children, and my interest in mediation started at a very young age. I shouldn't say started in mediation or conflict resolution, but my interest in conflict, I will say, and the sources of conflict especially started at a very young age because I had an accident. I fell down at age 5.5 thereabouts, and hurt myself and spent inordinate amounts of time in hospital in those years. All they had was penicillin to treat the infection in my end of the world. And I contracted what is called osteomyelitis. So I have a physical impairment. I walk, I do whatever, but I have a pronounced limp, and I have what is called chronic osteomyelitis, which is painful. I live with it. And my interest in conflict and the sources of conflict as I grew up came from how people treated me because I was different in a way. Even children in school, adults, like it just was strange to me because I didn't know it was a problem until people pointed that out. So from a very early age, I had to make a decision whether to defend against these differential treatments that were meted out to me, or whether to acquiesce and just accept whatever people foisted on me because of the difference, the physical differences between us. For example, children wouldn't allow me to play with them. Adults tried to limit me even when I was willing to do things because of a limp. You can't do this, you can't do that. So that was where it all started. In secondary school, in boarding school, how people treated me. You can't dance because you dance funny. Those kinds of things got my interest piqued in conflict and how to live with it more than how to resolve it. So I hope that answers that for you enough, I hope.
Absolutely, it does. Thank you. Thank you for sharing a heartbreaking but very honest
Oh,
interest in how you came to view a mediation. The first question that we would have for you then is, as an African mediator, do you think that your approach to mediation is impacted by a particular ideal that are implicit in your cultural background? And I suppose for me, above and beyond that question of culture, I can already tell how your living with a disability has also impacted your interest in mediation as well.
yes. I grew to learn about it, the Western ways of doing it. And I currently own a business. I am a consultant, and my company is called All Cultures Conflict Resolution. And I designed and deliver a program accredited by the ADR, the Alternative Dispute Resolution Institute of Canada. The program is titled Mediation in Cultural Contexts. And that came about after I have worked in many contexts here in Canada where I discerned a gap. And the gap that I discerned was that even though Canada is officially multicultural, the mediation systems, approaches, whatever you call them, processes that they have here, were all like focused on single Western European lenses, like a single lens, I would say. I wouldn't say lenses, a single Western European lens, which excluded other cultures. And everybody has a way of resolving conflicts. I remember growing up, my father resolving land conflicts in our living room, resolving marital conflicts. They may not have been the same process as is used in mediations in the Western world. So my answer is, I started to become subversive in that I paid attention to people's culture. I asked questions. I spent time on their understandings and their practices and of how they resolve conflicts wherever they have come from. And I try to incorporate that into my work, the work I did with them, in addition to what I have learned on my own and what I knew of my own approaches from where I have come from, my own cultural conflict transformation, I like to call them, because as I said earlier, you have to learn to live with the conflict. You can't really get rid of them. So yes, I have introduced my own cultural perspectives into my work.
To me, it almost, if I may say so, and if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but it almost seems like you are in the embodiment, you are embodying these intersectional perspectives. You have taken aboard these various ideas from gender, from race, living with a disability. These are multiple perspectives that you've almost embodied, you've learned from others, and you've now put this into your work, which is so beautiful to hear.
Okay, so what I have missed to say is I worked as a staff mediator for the Human Rights Commission here in the province for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the places where I developed this, or at least that I observed that people weren't being served. People weren't understanding what the approaches that were being used. They come in looking for someone to just speak for them. And, they had different perspectives on what conflict resolution meant, what mediation meant. So that was one of the places where I developed that. And as you know, human rights codes speak to intersectionality in analyzing conflicts, because we're talking from race to gender to creed, religion, all of that. So I got a good grasp of difference working at the Human Rights Commission, disability, all of that. So I missed saying that, contributing that, but that was one of the places. I was sent off to Uganda by the commission, or actually by the province, to assist the Uganda High Commission to set up what they called a culturally appropriate mediation system. So I worked with them for a while on that. And that too informed me about how culture matters. Because if someone comes to you and says, I have a case, I'm breaking up with my wife because I think she's a witch. You don't hear that in the Western world. And so there's no way Western European concepts of how to resolve conflicts will fit this kind of, how would you call it? Conflict, right? Where witchcraft is featuring, right? So that is it. That is a correction I needed to make, to say I worked with a Human Rights Commission, so I was influenced greatly by that experience.
I can imagine. So it sounds to me like you have an opinion, and I could be incorrect, but that a mediator can incorporate various values, various perspectives into the resolution process, into the mediation process.
That is my belief that it is important, because we need to serve disputants. We need to work with disputants, and their meaning making and understandings matter. So subversively or on my own terms or not, I believe that mediation is about disputants, and their meaning making and understandings matter. So yes, it's important for me.
So it sounds like they're very much centered to your approach to mediation.
Definitely.
Do you elaborate a bit more on your preferred approach to mediation?
Okay, my preferred approach is, as I said, to design to fit the disputants, the stakeholders, the people whose conflict it is. I don't think I should follow the Harvard model, the Western European thought processes of what mediation should be. To my mind, doesn't fit how cultural others think about and understand mediation. And so I spend a lot of time on preparing for the mediation. And if I set the stage properly, I will have information on how either side, first of all, sees the conflict. Like I say, I have this process that I call the 3 Ps. So I focus on the people, then the problems they present, and that would inform me of what the most appropriate process should be. And I would alter, because I don't do this in spite of, I would alter the Western model to suit, because there are many good things about the Western models, right? That bring order and, so it's not like I'm saying, let's jettison the whole thing. I'm just saying, be inclusive. Add some of these people's understandings and perspectives to what exists. And that is what I aim to do and do in my mediation.
So it sounds incredibly, as you say, inclusive. Inclusivity is very important to your approach. Would you say that you focus more on the output or the process when mediating?
I focus on the process, because the process is important for the output. Like, without the process, there'll be no output. And I think I put more into the process because that is what will determine the yield, right? Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but if the process doesn't work, you're going to have an unenduring settlement or output. It will be unenduring. And I think that is what feeds endemic and entrenched conflicts in different regions around the world. Because people come off, they're going to send someone who was an ambassador to Myanmar 50 years ago to go there because he knows the region. It's usually that, without taking into consideration that things have evolved since he was or lived there the last time. So nothing fits, right? And then there's the conflicts become entrenched, and then they become endemic. And everybody will say in the end, these people, African peoples, just are intractable. Their conflicts keep going on. But I think the approaches that are used don't fit their understandings. And so the outputs don't endure, right? So I think approach matters. Very, very important to me anyway.
So it sounds like the process then is so important to you because it in itself determines the sustainability of the output. Whereas
Correct.
if it's output based, yes, you might achieve this output, big tick, but what is its actual sustainability? Has actually anybody agreed to something that will be a sustainable conflict-free future?
Yes, and I call them, my terminology is always durable. Like your output, is your output gonna be durable and doable? You know, able and durable. And the process will determine at the end of it, is this gonna be doable, the options that you guide the group to select as workable, are they going to be doable? And are they going to be durable? Right? So those two words drive my process, let's say.
Okay. And then do you think the doability and the durability are what make a mediation successful? Because that's my next question to you is how would you describe success in the mediation process?
Success in a mediation to me is determined by the disputants.
Okay.
I am a facilitator. At the end of the day, I have to check the gaps, right? Between when I started to work with the individuals or the groups, what's like read between the lines when you meet them, what's their body language, how are they interacting with one another, and at the end of it, what are you getting? Is there an improvement? Because the conflict will always be there. We just pile on our conflicts. So success in the immediacy of it is kind of difficult to it's kind of difficult to call, like, you know, in the immediacy of the end of the process. At the end of the process, I can't say, oh yeah, this has been successful. It's almost requires that you wait to see. Because if you call it immediately, there has been no practice for you to base any measure of success on. So I think you have to kind of depend on the stakeholders, the disputants themselves, and wait and see if the options that were selected are yielding the outputs that you your group, you worked with them to achieve. I can't call it immediately. So that's what I think. And I hope I answered it, because
You have. No, you've done beautifully. I wanted to see if you had anything more to add. So then it sounds to me like patience is important in mediation. Um,
yes,
what other sort of criteria do you think is important when you are a leader in mediation? Because I see you've been the leader in mediation in numerous processes.
so you're asking about what I think is...
What sort of criteria do you think a lead mediator needs to have? What characteristics are
criteria.
important?
Okay, so I don't think leadership, I'm like, who is a leader? Leadership should not be foisted on a group to begin with. I think
Okay.
our leaders shouldn't be chosen for us. Who in mediation? I don't know. I think there shouldn't be like a one size fits all criteria
Okay.
or approach to selecting who a leader should be. I always have issues with that. I live in a place where every time I hear, oh, the black community leadership said this and did this, and I'm like, who made them leaders? The media, because that's who they come to question. So I don't like foisting leadership. And as I said, I think the members of the group should do that themselves. But and so I have difficulty saying, oh, this is the quality. What if I go and I say, oh, a leader of a mediation, a leader in a mediation group should be the one with the loudest voice, the tallest, the one with the most, who has read the most books, the one who is the professor, one who is the this, the that. I don't think everybody would agree that those are the qualities or the characteristics that a leader should possess, right? I've given you my answer. I have difficulty with selecting who a leader should be if I'm in a group and there's consensus that this person, because of their contributions to the group, because they have, based on a past performance or past performances, can be trusted to achieve such and such for the group, and there's consensus that they should be named the leader, then I'm part of it. But it's difficult for me alone. So I believe in consensus, choices made from group consensus, right? That's how I would answer that.
So then it sounds to me like if you're a mediator, and the next question is, what skills do mediators need to have? It sounds like you need to have patience, and there needs to be a sense of fairness that you embody in the process as well. Consideration, perhaps, for everybody involved in the process.
Yeah, but I generally will say, like, an open mind to acquire the wisdom. No matter what the source of the wisdom, you need an open mind, and you need to be flexible. So you can deviate from what is imposed and is rigid of mediation modeling and practices. Yeah, right? I will say that generally. But skills, the capacity to get from disputants, the capacity to elicit from disputants what processes and procedures align with their meaning making and understanding. You see? And then the flexibility to design proceedings or procedures that would work for them.
So empathy.
Yes, empathy would be, you see, when we go with empathy, sympathy, all of those, like, they are really, to me, they are buzzwords. They take away from, it's not everyone who sees empathy as important to mediation or to a successful mediation. And I'm not talking about the mediator, right? Because we are facilitating a process for other people. We are there to facilitate, but they own it, as is said. So empathy, someone may not even be looking at you to be empathetic. They're just looking for you to deliver or help them reach an end that works for them. So if you are empathetic and it's part of what they need, then their needs are being met, right? So what I'm saying is be the chameleon. If we go with these set, why would I say, descriptives of what a mediator should have, should be, it wouldn't necessarily work for everyone. That's what I'm trying to explain, to say I prefer to design to fit. I don't like generalizations, or I'm uncomfortable with generalizations about, oh, a mediator should be empathetic. What does that mean? Does it work necessarily for the clients or for the disputants that you're working with? Do they prefer you to be less so and more focused on objective criteria? Like, what is it, right? So if we bind ourselves with be empathetic, be this, then you may end up not serving some other clients or some other disputants well.
Being disputee centered is your primary objective there. Yeah, you've also always you've had training, as you were saying, with the Human Rights Commission of Ontario. What sort of training do you think a mediator should have?
Oh, out of the different trainings I've had, I think a mediator should have lived experience as an observer of life, of interpersonal or of group dysfunction. Sometimes I think we focus, and I know it's all about order and what have you, for people to be accredited, to follow the same rules and ethics and guidelines and all that. But I think lived experience is not given any kind of priority in assessing or in training mediators towards an assessment of whether they are capable or not. A person who has no experience with conflict and wishes conflict away, like there are some people who are so conflict averse that they just want peace, and at all costs, peace. And peace to them is so superficial in the end. In my opinion, peace is don't muddy the waters. Don't, just keep quiet and sweep it under the carpet. In my opinion, someone like that who is a practicing mediator needs to be sent to train, to a training designed to exercise the goodness out of them. And by that, I mean the goodness, exercise it out of them, because I think it is important in our understandings of conflict and conflict resolution to have experienced dysfunction, to have experienced disequilibrium ourselves or as observers, and to have taken those experiences, how would I say, imbibed those experiences. So when we are working with people in conflict, we will understand the diversities that, how would I say, that they present with. The diversity, conflicts itself has a diversity within it. Like everybody's conflict is not the same because our understandings are very, very different. of the sources, the triggers, and ultimately the resolution or transformation of the conflicts differ from person to person, even if they are on the same side. So I think the general training is okay. There are gaps in it that could be, I think, blocked with lived experience.
Okay. And speaking of then lived experience, your lived experience being a woman mediator, most contexts of conflict, people like to say are patriarchal. I know that I've spoken to quite a few mediators now who disagree with that and say, well, we deal with a lot of family mediation and there's more women involved. So my first question to you is, do you think that's true? Is most conflict male dominated? Is mediation male dominated?
I have to reach out to the traditions of my culture, my own culture, and say that women do preside over conflicts, although they are limited to facilitating mostly marital conflicts.
Okay.
But I think it is because they are seen as having experience in that area. It is patriarchal, the society is. So when it comes to land, like I said, then you have males dominating in that realm, where men are mediating or arbitrating or whatever conflict resolution tools they're using will be ascribed to men. Like, a man has to preside over certain certain conflicts that society thinks they are better equipped to preside over, and women, for the most part, are doing family and related conflict resolution. So yes, there is a segregation and a division of roles, assigned roles involved in this, as with most things within patriarchies. But on the global stage, as we all know, men have been leading, and yet the number of regions in the world today where conflict has become endemic with men leading globally are many, and they are multiplying by the day. So I've always been screaming my head off and saying, hey, why don't you give women a chance to lead these forays into these places, and let's see if they can do better. So I've spoken about, societies that are patriarchal. And here in Canada, for example, I'm a family mediator as well as human rights workplace. And in the courts, there are many, many men, many men who are family mediators as they are women, and many times I see people, because I train and I mentor, and I have worked with interns, many, many interns, who after their divorces believe they are equipped to become mediators. And so take necessary training as prescribed, but coming in with a perspective which they hold on to. Men are this way, men are that way. You know what I mean? That's what influences their practices. It's like my experiences. My husband was whatever to me in the marriage, and so every man I meet is like him. I've met lawyer colleagues of mine. We've co-mediated. We have discussions, and I find, with all due respect, that some lawyers can't move away from prejudging. Like, they're taking the side, they review the briefs, and it's like, this person is, And I'm like, come on. If that's how you're going to handle it, then don't read the brief. Just go in, clean, have them tell their stories, hear it for the first time, see if that makes a difference. You know, so we come into it thinking, all right, I'm a woman, and because I'm a woman, I'm disabled. I have a disability. And it happens that and when you mediate disability issues, when I walk in as the mediator with a limp, a discernible limp, and that person is also physically disabled, and the employer has, or they claim the employer has discriminated against them, they immediately see in me someone who would be on their side. This is one of us, my people, you know what I mean? So it's natural in a way, but you as the mediator has to have more of an, as I said, more of an open mind, be the chameleon, be able to switch from here to there. And sometimes I would even caucus and say, the fact that we are both disabled doesn't mean I'm going to be on your side. My role here is to be, you know, because I'm disabled. I know if I saw someone like that, I'll think, oh, they'll be on my side because they understand me better. They experience what I experience. Yes, it's so. But that's what I think about the gender patriarchy issue. To say, I don't think there should be room in the profession for discrimination based on gender. I think the wisdom, knowledge, and qualities required for mediation practice are not housed only in men or only in women. Any gender can be effective or not.
Absolutely. And these preconceived notions that are so limiting sound like they already are a challenge they challenge in life, but in the mediation process as well. That leads kind of to my next question, which is asking about the obstacles and challenges you encounter during mediation. What are they and how do you overcome them?
As I said, I spend a lot of time on preparing for the mediation, more time sometimes, preparing for the mediation. And what the Matu put, the, what do you call it, of the people of northern Uganda, the Matu put, the leveling the ground stage. I'm taking that from traditional practice. If you level the ground, you go in, the obstacles that come up, you cannot control all of them, because typically what I have experienced will be emotional outbursts that I cannot prepare for. There's no way I can prepare for emotional outbursts, because I cannot prepare for what people would say in a mediation and what the other party would discern as a breach in status. You know, like, it's like, this is an affront to my status. I am the managing director. How dare you? Or I'm chief so-and-so. How dare you speak with me? I cannot how would I say? I can't see that, project that in advance of our coming together. I can do a whole lot of other things. So many times I have experienced emotional outbursts, which I allow. In my practice, I allow emotional outbursts. I'm African and a Black African woman. Even our conversations, I have white parents-in-law. And here in Canada, when we have a gathering and we have Ghanaians and, you know, mixed race group, and the Ghanaians are like loud in simple conversations, sometimes just politics, home politics, you know, and people are, and I see my in-laws are very uncomfortable. So then they came to Ghana to visit for a month, and we had a gathering of people, and the women were having arguments and conversation loud, and I kept watching them, pointing fingers, and my in-laws were watching. So after the party ended, I said, Carol and Dick, you see how we are. At the end of it, people, when they are leaving, they are hugging and saying, yeah, see you. You know, we have this place to meet at and whatever. It wasn't about a fight. We raised our voices to make a point. We understand that. To a white person, it's a no. You mustn't raise your voice. It's not done, you know. So what I say is, I do have emotional outbursts in my mediations, and I allow them. How do I overcome them? As I said, I spend a lot of time preparing disputants for the joint session in individual or separate group confidential meetings, where I prod and just to understand what is important to them going forward with the proceeding. So by the time I sit down with the two sides, they have an understanding of what is expected, right? Now, what I cannot control, as I said, is what I couldn't plan for. And it's usually emotional outbursts. But I find pre-preparation or pre-mediation, pre-joint session preparations help me to whittle down the number of challenges, obstacles that I may face otherwise. I hope that helped, that answered it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, preparation for yourself and preparation with the disputants is key. And there is only so much that we can plan for in life.
Correct.
And as you say, emotional outbursts are part of life. I come from an Italian family. I can tell you that things get very loud, but they also become very loving when everybody separates. That's just how we roll. That's
My
just how
brother
we roll.
lives in Palermo, is married to an Italian woman.
Oh, he'll know then. He knows.
Yes, we are like that. That's how we roll, for sure.
Um, so we're coming to the end of the interview now. And I think what we really would like to know from you is do you have a particular experience or particular conflict that you've mediated that you could share with us as an example that you used? I'm sure you use every mediation to learn and to grow. You are the kind of a person who embodies these things and grows with them and learns from others. So I'm sure you do that in every mediation process, but was there a particular mediation where you learned so much that that knowledge was invaluable to take forward with you to future mediation practices?
Particular woman. I've had a long practice, and I do civil mediations, community. I'm trying to think about where a good one would come from. On the continent itself, as I said, I've had, I haven't done any international, like, you know, big, what do you call them? But I have done mediations at the level where groups, like two groups, are having issues like on in community, and what becomes important, like it's involved in Ghana, what we call Queen Mothers presiding, or representing, I should say, not presiding. So you have Queen Mothers and a fight between two communities, which was large. And what I learned from that is it takes very little separates groups. Difference, if not managed, like minor differences in culture, minor differences in how people think about their role in life itself, transcends from the group to individuals. I had a mediation here that is also, that added or confirmed that to me.
Mm-hmm.
In my training program, I have something I call migrating with conflict. That's a topic that I do because I had this this group from Serbia in the 90s when the Balkans war was going on. A lot of people came from the region to Canada. And this group leases cottages in the summertime because a lot of them live in apartments in the city. So in the summertime, they go off their community to just, wind down. And this gentleman, older gentleman, was married to a Croat woman. They had children. He took his sick wife, rented one of the cottages, and took his wife over there for the summer. When the rest of the Serbian community, he's Serbian, the lady is Croat, the wife is Croat, they served him notice and said, don't bring her here because she's Croat. And he said, we've been married for years. Our children are grown. She's been my wife before the war. Why can't I bring my wife to a cottage? They said, no. The threat was, if she's in the cottage when it burns down, don't blame us. And so, migrating with conflicts, because when I mediated this, the leader of the Serbian group said to me, go to my country and see how many mines they have left in the ground for us to walk over. And there was nothing I could do in that mediation to get them to move from that position.
Okay.
So migrating with conflict, I learned from this mediation. And that kind of cemented for me what I brought from that group mediation that said, the individual makes the group. Individuals make a group. And what we are informs our perspectives on conflict. And what we are is what our culture endows to us. That's how I think about it.
Sure, that's very interesting. And a little bit heartbreaking at the same time.
Yes.
But that to find that migration through the conflict makes so much sense. I don't have any other set questions to ask you, other than to ask you or to give you this opportunity to share any last thoughts or feelings that you have regarding the topic of mediation and women, particularly in the African context.
I'm a member of FirmWise. FirmWise, and you know FirmWise, of course, and AU's, and so far, I see some people in East Africa have had opportunities to, sit at some tables, but for the most part, it's a huge membership, and mostly youthful young women. It's mostly geared to youth. But I don't see anything. I had a lot of hope. It's not materializing. But I would sincerely love to see that the work you guys are doing would add to what is already available to help propel women forward, because as I said in one of the answers, men have been in charge for so long, and I'm not seeing change. What I'm seeing is conflicts are becoming entrenched and endemic to particular regions of the world, where those who are sent to mediate are not aligned with the cultures of the people. If regionally we are able to train women to take over from these foreign imposed mediators, train some women at least to bring balance to what exists now, it will be amazing. So I hope in your future work as young people, we'll go beyond just hearing our stories and helping to make this dream of mine that there will be balance in who is representing in the field of conflict resolution in the different regions of the world. It will be amazing to see that.
That's the hope.
Say gender balance, not just gender balance, but also cultural balance, right?
That's a beautiful thought, and such an important aim to highlight. It moves beyond just gender, but to be fully intersectional and to consider all aspects. Do you have any advice for us on how you think this should go forward? What should be getting done differently? Obviously, training women in mediation is important.
Women are being trained, but I'll be very honest with you. I'm a member of Mediators Beyond Borders International's IPTI, which is the International Peace Training Institute. We train women mediators across the globe. However, the training is always based on a Western European model. It doesn't matter what region of the world the people are coming from. And it's making me reticent. These days, I've become very reluctant because I'm the lone voice that is saying, look, when you're training people in South Africa and you're imposing Western European ways only and not having that intersection, it defeats the purpose. Because if you take Black South Africans, you take Indo-South Africans, you take white South Africans, given their lived histories and experiences, they all think differently about conflict and how it should be resolved. So if we're using the same, how would I say it? That's what is taught, like from the same playbook, the Harvard model, the whatever model they call it, and the books that are prescribed are the same. Nothing is going to change. And nothing has changed, even in South Africa. It's just a different form. If we're talking where you live, Black youth it's all going on the same way, because it's like the only way we know to do it is fight for our rights, and fight for our rights means what? You know what I mean? So there has to be there has to be intersectionality even in training. If we are going to train women mediators, we should look at where they are, what are their understandings, like take from them to formulate what we give back to them. So there will be, I think by doing that, we will begin to make a difference, because understanding and meaning making is everything. And if it's not there in the process that you are imposing, then it's not going to align with whether this conflict will be transformed or not. It won't align with that. So yes, I agree. If I'm going to offer anything, I will say tailor the training, make it intersectional, tailor it to fit who you're training and where, the context within which you're training them. Hope it makes sense.
Golden advice, golden wisdom. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.